Thanks for watching. We appreciate you. Please, please subscribe.
Medical experts are sounding the alarm over the spread of valley fever. The fungal infection that can cause long-term lung problems is historically found in the Southwest, 97% of cases in California and Arizona, but it is now spreading potentially as a result of climate change, hotter and drier conditions allowing the fungus to thrive elsewhere in the U.S.
I can't deal with one more thing. So I want to get some perspective. Is this a thing? Is this not a thing? We are joined by Dr. Thomas Yadigar, pulmonologist and medical director of intensive care at Providence Cedars-Sinai Medical Center. Thankfully, we're not talking to you about COVID tonight. Now we got something new we got to worry about. So let's try to do this rapid fire. Give us some perspective on what this is. How does a person get valley fever?
Well, a person gets valley fever when they inhale the spores of the fungus that lie dormant in our soil. And under certain conditions such as earthquake, with the fires, as well as with construction, those soils become airborne, and people who are immunocompromised and people who are pregnant can inhale those and develop very severe disease.
What are the symptoms, and is it contagious?
So again, this isn't a new disease. It's been around for a long time, and the symptoms are very much similar to other respiratory infections. So cough, fever, fatigue, as well as a rash. The good news is the vast majority of patients get better without any intervention. And again, there are 5 to 10% of patients that do get valley fever that do require hospitalization as well as IV antifungal agents.
So how is it diagnosed, and how common is something like this?
It's diagnosed by lab tests, but the key is that you have to really look for it. You have to suspect it. Otherwise, it's very easily missed, and that can have dire consequences for the patients. And the good thing is that it's not passed on from a patient to another patient, so it's not contagious like COVID or influenza.
How's it passed on?
It's passed on by inhaling it, inhaling those spores. It's not passed on from a human to human transmission. So you have to be kind of unlucky to get it in the wrong place at the wrong time. But again, for the vast majority of patients, it's just a self-limited disease that goes away within a few weeks.
Okay, so are you seeing this actively in your hospital right now? How much of a concern is it for the Southern California area?
It's always been a concern for the Southern California area, and then anytime that we get a patient that has pneumonia that's not responding to antibiotics, this is one of those diseases that you have to think of and you have to look for, because in those patients, it may not go away by itself. But it's always around, and especially, like I said, when there's fires, when there's an earthquake, those cause the spores to become more airborne, and people are more likely to become infected with it.
So is this something that can be cured?
It can. There are antifungal agents that do treat those diseases. Sometimes the fungus can spread to the central nervous system, and that makes a much more serious prognosis. But even in those cases, we do have special medications that can treat those patients.
And perhaps the last question, is there a vaccine for this?
Obviously we want a vaccine for every infection, because then we can, get them under control. I believe since the 1960s, the CDC has been looking for a vaccine, but up until recently, there have been a vaccine developed for dogs. We are hopeful that that will get approved, and hopefully with that, we can, get it advanced to a vaccine for humans as well.
I mean, clearly an old school disease making a comeback, or maybe disease is the wrong phrase there, but interesting information. Thank you. I feel a lot smarter after hearing from you. Dr. Thomas Yadigar, always great to hear from you.
Always a pleasure. Thank you.
Thanks for watching. We appreciate you. Please, please subscribe.